Well, dozens of aid trucks have begun entering Gaza again as pressure mounts on Israel to let in aid for starving Gazans. The renewed aid push comes as leading Israeli human rights groups accuse Israel's government of committing genocide in Gaza. And Donald Trump has said that he disagrees with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's claim that there is no starvation in Gaza.
Zainab was once a fairly healthy baby. But when the 5-month-old died, she weighed less than when she was born. Doctors say her cause of death was severe starvation. My 5-month-old daughter died of malnutrition, the closure of the crossing and the ban on the entry of baby formula. With my daughter's death, many will follow. Their names are on a list that no one looks at. They're just names and numbers. Our children, whom we carried for 9 months and then gave birth to, have become just numbers. According to the Gaza Health Ministry, Zainab is one of the dozens of children to die of malnutrition-related causes in Gaza in the past 3 weeks. The World Food Programme says these trucks finally entering the Gaza Strip on Sunday are a welcome step. Amid the growing international outrage over the hunger crisis, Israel has agreed to provide secure land routes for UN aid convoys. Military operations in parts of the enclave were also put on hold to allow more aid.
This is long overdue, and we need still to reiterate how important is the ceasefire. So now we see this as a proper way for us to increase the assistance into Gaza, but it will not be within, one single day that we can actually change the current level of starvation that you have currently in Gaza.
Israel has blamed the United Nations and its partners for the hunger crisis and has accused Hamas of stealing aid.
Israel is presented as though we are applying a campaign of starvation in Gaza. What a bold-faced lie. There is no policy of starvation in Gaza, and there is no starvation in Gaza. We enable humanitarian aid throughout the duration of the war to enter Gaza. Otherwise, there would be no Gazans.
The Israeli government restricted nearly all aid to Gaza from March to May this year to pressure Hamas into accepting a ceasefire. In late May, the US and Israeli-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation began distributing food at limited sites. According to the UN, hundreds of Palestinians have been killed near the aid distribution sites since then.
And as we heard, 2 major Israeli human rights groups, B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights, have come out with a joint report condemning Israel's actions in Gaza.
Israel is committing genocide against the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. The report written by us at B'Tselem presents facts, data, and testimonies about how Israel is acting in a deliberate, coordinated, and systematic way to destroy the Palestinians in Gaza.
Let's speak now to Michael Lynk, Professor Emeritus of Law at Western University and former UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in the Occupied Palestinian Territories. So we have here for the first time these 2 leading rights groups accusing Israel, well, Israeli rights groups, I should say, accusing the government of genocide in Gaza. From a legal perspective, what definition would have to be met there?
Sure. When we talk about genocide in a legal sense, we're looking at 2 conventions that the world has adopted in the latter part of the 20th century, the 1948 Genocide Convention and the 1998 Rome Statute. And they use the same definition for genocide. And what the definition is that it focuses on the destruction or intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, racial, religious, or ethnical group. And we have to find, as we do in domestic criminal codes, both a genocidal acts and genocidal intent. And that's what prior groups such as Amnesty International has said has occurred. And that's the same definitions that's being used by B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights in Israel as well.
To prove intent, what kind of evidence would be relied on in court in a case like this?
Well, you can look at both the actions that are taking place. Did leadership, of political and military leadership, continue to use war crimes and crimes against humanity in a way that would wind up creating the destruction of the said group in whole or in part? You can also look at statements as well. And certainly those who've been monitoring how Israel's military campaign has been going on since October 2023 have compiled hundreds of statements from Israeli political leaders, from Israeli military leaders, from Israeli influencers, such as those in the media, which indicate a desire to wipe out the population or to expel the population from Gaza, such that there be few, if any, Palestinians living in Gaza by the time this war is over.
And from where you sit as a professor of law and a former UN Special Rapporteur, how do you assess these allegations? Do they meet those criteria?
I think they do. I've been saying for some time that I think Israel's crossed the bright red line into genocide with how it's conducting the war. We have statements made by the provisional ruling of the International Court of Justice in January 2024 that South Africa's application under the Genocide Convention concluded that there is a plausible case for genocide that Israel has been committing. And what has been going on now in the 18 months since that ruling has come out only seems to add to the weight of evidence that's been collected, particularly with respect to the use of starvation, particularly with respect to the statements coming from Israeli cabinet ministers, Israeli Knesset members, Israeli military leaders with respect to this. All of it seems to indicate a desire to be rid of the Palestinians in Gaza, either through their death or through their forced expulsion from Gaza. And the point, then one wonders, is with the destruction going on in Gaza, with most homes destroyed, with most institutions destroyed, it's making the area unlivable and cannot be reconstructed for human habitation for at least 20 years.
In that case you mentioned that South Africa has brought to the ICJ, it does seem like we won't be getting a judgment on that until the end of 2027 at the earliest. Do legal proceedings like this match the urgency of the moment?
No, they don't. You've put your finger on the point. The ICJ, to its credit, acted very quickly when South Africa filed its initial application at the end of December 2023. It held 2 days of hearings within 2 weeks and then issued its ruling several weeks later at the end of January 2024. But you're right now. We are going through a long paper process where South Africa has submitted its lengthy arguments in front of the court. So then Israel's turn has come, and the ICJ has just granted Israel 6 additional months until sometime in January 2026 to deliver its full response. And then there are replies of further paper argument by South Africa and by Israel. And then we probably won't even have the hearing until sometime early in 2027 with a decision 6-8 months later. And keep in mind, we've had a number of countries, at least 15 by my count, who've intervened, almost all on the side of South Africa, arguing that Israel is committing genocide in violation of the 1948 Genocide Convention. So no, there isn't urgency. And certainly what we hear from the Israeli groups today in issuing their joint report is that we have to move much quicker. The whole point of the Genocide Convention isn't to give comfort to historians 20 years from now to say with certainty there was a genocide in 2025. It's to urge countries in the international community to act if there's a genocide or even a genocide in the making. That's what the Genocide Convention's main purpose is.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on DW with your insights today. We've been speaking with Michael Lynk, former UN Special Rapporteur for Human Rights in the Occupied Palestinian Territories. And I'd like to welcome Jean-Guy Vataux, the Emergency Coordinator for Doctors Without Borders in Gaza, who is joining us today from Deir al-Balah. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Your organization is among more than 100 others who have urged Israel to allow in more aid at scale. How much of a difference have the last couple of days made in getting that access to Gazans?
Well, a very little part of the difference is the air operation that has started, which is some very expensive way to distribute food for the population. And it is also very unnecessary. The trucks are here. The food is there waiting to be distributed from Egypt, from Jordan, from Israel. The roads are here. So this air distribution system is really quite unnecessary. However, at the same time, there has been some opening by the Israeli government. The World Food Programme was able to bring in something like 100 trucks today. It's a lot more than what we have seen in the past 4 months. However, it's still not the quantity that would be needed to take care of the famine that has been developing in Gaza.
Now, last week, your organization said that what's happening in Gaza is the deliberate starvation of people. That's something that in the past the Israeli government has strongly denied. What has led you to that conclusion?
Well, for 4 months, there has been not enough food entering Gaza. For 2 months, the first 2 months, there was no food at all entering into Gaza, and only the government of Israel has the power to open those doors to the food or not. I know the state of Israel has claimed that there was enough food here. This is not what we see. This is not what we hear. You can ask anybody who is in Gaza, who has been in Gaza. The situation has been dramatic. The famine has been hitting all social class. My colleagues, doctors, your colleague, journalists working here, don't find enough food to feed their family every day. And of course, the poorest of the Palestinians are hit the hardest, and especially the children, who are the ones now coming to our clinics being severely malnourished.
You mentioned the trucks lined up at the border waiting to get in. Could you just give us a sense of the scale of the aid that is waiting, trying to access people in Gaza seeking food?
You would need 600 trucks per day. That's approximately what was done during the previous ceasefire, where relief was more or less free, to start to change the curve of the situation, to improve the situation here. I know the World Food Programme has, just for this week, 800 trucks just of food ready to come in. Most of it for Egypt. The government of Israel has committed to let all those relief items come in. We hope they make it happen.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. That is Jean-Guy Vataux, the Emergency Coordinator for Doctors Without Borders in Gaza.